You've just been involved in a car crash or you've been struck by a motor vehicle. You filed a lawsuit, and you're probably wondering what type of damages or what damages can I recover when I've been injured in a motor vehicle crash. Jonathan Ratchik from Kramer, Dunleavy Ratchik. And this is a question that I'm oftentimes asked by clients or prospective clients as it relates to their case. What can I recover? And there are three broad categories of damages that one can recover in a motor vehicle accident. The first one is known as pain and suffering, right? Pain and suffering is what it sounds like, okay? It's someone once told me years ago, pain is what the body feels, right? It hurts, it's discomfort, and suffering is what your soul feels, right? It's what when you wake up every day in pain, it's upsetting, it's depressing, and something that you have to live with every day. Those are two sides of the same coin for pain and suffering. And if you've been involved in a motor vehicle crash, you're entitled to recover damages that will justly and fairly compensate you for your pain and suffering. And you have to be conscious for it, right? It has to be conscious pain and suffering. And a subcategory of that is loss of enjoyment of life, right? And you have your pain and suffering, and then you have your loss of enjoyment of life. And in making that determination, a jury has to take into consideration what effects, if any, your injuries have had on your ability to enjoy life, whether that's to perform activities of daily living, exercise, travel, chores around the house, whatever it might be. If your injuries have affected how you enjoy life, you're entitled to recover damages that will fairly and adequately compensate you for that loss. But there's a catch in motor vehicle crashes, and I don't want to make this whole broadcast about this exception, but in any motor vehicle crash, you have to demonstrate that you suffered a serious injury within the meaning of the law in New York in order to recover damages for pain and suffering, okay? And again, I don't want to get into that because that's a whole other topic area of the law, but you can't bring a lawsuit in New York for injuries sustained as a result of a motor vehicle crash unless you've sustained a quote unquote serious injury within the meaning of the law, provided that you can, and the law has various definitions of what a serious injury is. It can be as straightforward as a broken bone, a significant disfigurement, God forbid you're killed in a motor vehicle accident, if you miss 3 months out of work following a motor vehicle accident, and then there's this whole gray area. But the underlying theme is that your injuries have to be serious in order to recover damages for pain and suffering. Okay, and again, if you can meet that quote unquote meet that threshold, then you are entitled to damages that will fairly and adequately compensate you for those damages and for your loss of enjoyment of life. Another category of damages is going to be your medical expenses, right? So if you're involved in a motor vehicle crash, you may incur medical expenses for hospitals, for physicians, for nursing, for diagnostic tests such as x-rays and MRIs, for prescriptions, transportation to and from, whatever it might be, you're entitled to recover reasonable expenditures for those items of damages, okay? And the jury can render an award for that and compensate you for that loss. But again, there's also always, and that's both for the past, right? So any damages that you recovered from the date of the incident, say up until the verdict, jury can compensate you for that. And if the jury, or if there's evidence that you're going to need medical or hospital or nursing expenditures in the future, then you can be compensated in an amount which compensates you for that amount, provided you can demonstrate that you will incur those future damages with reasonable certainty. It can't be based upon conjecture or speculation. You'll need some evidence, usually expert testimony, that sets forth what medical expenses you can reasonably expect to incur in the future by reason of your physical injuries. But again, like so many areas of the law, there's a catch in New York, okay? And the catch is under the no-fault, thinking of the better word, under the no-fault statute in New York, you cannot recover damages for basic economic loss. And basic economic loss means damages less than $50,000. Because if your economic loss is less than $50,000, presumably it will get covered under the no-fault statute, okay, provided it's related to the motor vehicle crash, okay? So that is a catch, and oftentimes when cases go to trial, if those medical expenses are less than $50,000, you won't necessarily be entitled to get an award for that amount. The jury can still hear evidence regarding what medical expenses you incurred, but presumably that should have been covered under the no-fault statute, and there won't be a separate award for that. And lastly, the last item of damages, and again, I'm painting with a very broad brush here, is going to be lost income, lost earnings. Okay. So if you're injured as a result of a motor vehicle crash, you are entitled to get reimbursed for any earnings that you may have lost by reason of your injuries, again, from the date of the incident until the date of the verdict. And again, it has to be demonstrated that and that can also include your inability to, if you have a loss of earning capacity in the future by reason of your injuries, you can recover for that as well. But any award for lost earnings has to be based upon reasonable certainty. It cannot be based upon speculation, okay? Or just guessing of what you might have earned. And oftentimes the way that you can demonstrate this is you look at someone's earnings history. Sometimes it's very straightforward, right? Sometimes it's just you're an hourly employee, you make, say, $1,000 a week, you missed 8 weeks from work because of your injuries, and you're making a claim for $8,000 in lost earnings. And sometimes it's a little bit less straightforward if you're a salaried employee or if you're self-employed, and then but in any event, you always have to come forward with evidence that demonstrates with reasonable certainty what your lost earnings are, okay? And again, the same holds true for the future. If you're going to claim an inability to work or a loss of earning capacity, you need to be able to demonstrate with reasonable certainty what those future lost earnings or what that future lost earning capacity is, okay? Again, it cannot be based just upon speculation. And just as it held true for medical expenses in the context of a motor vehicle crash, if your lost earnings and together with your medical expenses are less than $50,000, you might not necessarily be able to recover that at the time of trial because that would fall under basic economic loss, which would presumably or should be covered under the no-fault statute. And again, which is why it's always so important to speak to an attorney sooner rather than later if you've been involved in a motor vehicle crash, because it's important. There are strict deadlines by which you need to file an application for no-fault benefits so that your medical expenses get paid, so that your lost earnings get paid, and regardless of fault. So that's one of the benefits. That's the trade-off, so to speak, in the no-fault statute, right? You can, regardless of who's at fault, it's going to cover your medical expenses and lost earnings up to a certain amount, regardless of fault. If you want to recover damages for pain and suffering or loss of enjoyment of life, you need to demonstrate, again, that you've had a serious injury within the meaning of the law. But those are like the three general categories of damages that you can recover in a motor vehicle crash: pain and suffering with loss of enjoyment of life, loss of earnings, and medical expenses. If you want to find out more about this, feel free to give my office a call. You can also visit us online at www.kdrpilawyers.com. And that's a wrap.